goal of UML diagrams is to help our developers, from a programming standpoint. So typically UML diagrams are, we'll go through, there's maybe 9 to 10 different types of diagrams that are used in the industry, both for waterfall and agile. And typically they're created so we get validation from our customers, and that we have a blueprint for our developers when they're developing systems and programming the back end of those systems, right? So primarily the UML diagrams that we have, there's 13 of them that I found on Google. You guys, my background, I'm a business analyst, I'm a project manager, I'm a certified project manager, but my passion is business analysis. And in my career, out of the 13, I've only used maybe 3 from a BA/PM standpoint. So know that majority of these used UML diagrams, UML stands for Unified Modeling Language, right? Majority of them are actually designed for developers in their system architecture or while they're coding, to make sure that if there is a transition from one developer to the next, that transition is smooth. And then even when developers are building systems, they may create these diagrams to help them make sure that they have conceptualized the concepts before they start their coding practices. So in my career of 14 to 15 years in building very, very complex systems, working with, Fortune, sometimes 50 companies, the UML diagrams that I have experience with as a BA and a PM are use case diagrams, sequence diagrams, and activity diagrams. So if you guys are in the BA realm or trying to get into the BA job description, or, are in that transition or in that process, don't spend your time learning class diagrams or component or deployment diagrams. They're primarily on the back end, on the development side of the business. So you guys do not waste your time. I would say, unless you come from a programming background, unless you're a software developer today and you want to transition, then you probably understand what these diagrams are. But in the BA/PM realm, I can say without a doubt that typically you guys will not be focused on majority of the UML diagrams. You'll focus majority on use case, sequence, and activity. UML, Unified Modeling Language, is a way to visually represent architecture, design, and implementation of complex software systems. They're used primarily for developers as standardized modeling language, so that majority of software developers will understand it and be able to apply it to their work. So again, even the last 3 that I'll talk about, we use these from a BA and PM standpoint to get validation from our customers. So when we're gathering requirements, right, in the waterfall, or we're working on user stories in the agile environment, we use these diagrams while we're working with our stakeholders and our business partners to understand what the business needs are for whatever it is that we're building. So we create these diagrams while we're interviewing them, or while we're talking to them or gathering requirements. We create these diagrams to get validation from the customer or the business stakeholders, and then we pass them on to our developers so they also understand the conceptual view of how the software system or application is going to work. That makes sense? Okay.
Yeah.
So with that said, there are some symbols that you would need to know to use UML, right? So this helps. Let's talk about use cases. Use case diagrams help to depict interaction between system and its users. So I've talked about, having created a lot of use cases in my experience, in my background. And the goal of use cases is it's simple. It helps you identify what things are needed in the system, right? Each actor, so this is an actor and this is an actor, could be a person or another system. These are called actors in your use case diagram to help show the relationship between the customer and what it is that they're trying to do, a relationship between the customer or another system that they may be interfacing. So that's why use case diagrams are very, very popular and are very helpful when you're trying to build or design systems, right? So if we have time, I'm sure we will, because you guys are so quiet. we'll have time to create these ourselves, and you can see how we create them and how they're used. The last bullet I have here is that different processes and or functions are represented in the diagram. So typically when we have these ovals in the middle, these represent functions or use cases in the agile environment, in the waterfall. When we have these ovals, these will represent, again, different functions the system needs to have in order for it to be complete. So as a customer, this is, again, I got this from Google, didn't create this. It's a copy and paste. For a credit application for the customer, they have to submit an application. The application has to be reviewed, and then they have to issue a credit card, right? So the customer, the customer is responsible for submitting an application. So this is a user story if we were in the agile environment, right? So we'll have lots of user stories in how does a customer submit an application. From this actually should be the bank or the credit card company has the ability to review the application, and then based on review of the application, then issue the credit card. So you see there's two primary actors, the customer or the applicant of a credit card, and this should be the credit card company. Does that make sense, you guys? Any questions here? The other one is sequence diagrams. Again, what these show is the interaction between objects over time. As the name represents, sequence diagrams are primarily focused on what happens when something, like when there's a trigger, what are the downstream things that need to happen. They talk about the sequence of events that should be happening in systems, sequence whether it's a process within the internal system, sequence whether it is um, interactions between other systems or other like downstream impacts. So again, these typically are either high level or at the sequence level. So let's say if you're processing an application, the next thing that needs to happen is for that application to go for review. We'll go over this diagram. So this is what this is showing. So what happens after the application is submitted? It goes for credit application and things like that. So sequence diagrams, if you walk away with nothing else, just remember use case diagrams show interaction between users and systems, right, over the major hubs of functionality. Sequence diagrams showcase the sequence of events between systems, right? And then activity diagrams are typically the end-to-end. And we'll go over that too. So going back to sequence diagrams, they provide top to bottom view with messages being sent back and forth between different objects. So you see the flow, right? The application is submitted, notifies reviewers, the reviewers review the application, they either approve or deny. This is, the request coming back, and then the user's notified. So as I mentioned, sequence diagrams typically focus on what happens when a trigger is started. And the objects can be actors, could be systems, or sub packages within a system. Any questions here before I move on to activities? So activity diagrams, what you see on this diagram are called swim lanes, right? So what are swim lanes? Swim lanes represent three different users, right? In this case, we have the customer, we have the ATM machine, and we have the bank. When you have swim lanes, the reason why you have swim lanes is to show ownership of each individual actor and what they're going to be doing within that framework or that system. So you see that anything that a customer is responsible for, you'll see in the customer swim lane. Anything that the ATM will be doing, you'll see in the ATM swim lane. And anything the bank is responsible for, you'll do in the bank swim lane. And swim lanes typically is a type of a diagram. But what they do is they showcase the end-to-end flow with roles and responsibilities based on the users that are involved in that workflow. So activity diagrams are to visualize the steps performed in a use case. All of these, this is probably a use case, so it shows the end-to-end flow of the use case. I think this is, money withdrawal from an ATM. Activities can be sequential, branch, or concurrent, most often used in business process modeling. So as a business analyst PM, these are the diagrams that typically we do for like as is and 2D diagrams. to make sure that we're capturing the complete process as it's happening today and as it needs to happen in the future. Okay, so we'll go over this diagram. So again, we saw the like the dark circle, the filled in circle is a star. This circle with another circle over it is the end process. You see two ends. We see decision points. These diamonds are decision points. And typically when you have a decision point, there's two outcomes, either yes or no, and in this case, valid, invalid. So let's go over this one really quickly, and then we'll start doing our own use case diagram. So here, I believe, again, got this from Google, copy paste here, just to give you guys an example of what an activity diagram looks like. So when you insert an ATM, that is the start of this process. You validate the ATM. The decision is whether it's valid or not. So if it's invalid, let's say for example, you put in your credit card or a wrong card into the ATM machine, it's going to eject that card. You take that card, and that's the end of this process. If it is valid, if it is the correct ATM, right, you enter the PIN. There's an authorization. Again, is it valid or invalid? If it's invalid, it takes you down here to eject the card and take the card out. If it is valid, you enter the amount, the balances, your bank account balance is checked. If the balance is sufficient, then you debit the account or you take money from the slot. If the account balance is insufficient, then you give them a decision point to show them the balance and make a decision on what they need to do. Either case, whether they've taken the money out or they've debited the account, they come to this join. And again, there's one decision point from that join. They're able to see their balance. They can eject the card, take the card out, and the process is ended. Okay, I'm going to pause here. And before we start building our own UML diagrams, either it's use case, sequence, or activity, what questions do you guys have for me? Okay, so I get asked this question a lot. I don't know, we can't hear you too well, but I'll repeat the question just so everybody can hear it clearly. The question is, when you're seeing these diagrams individually, they're easy to understand. Which one should you be working on when you're working on a project, right? Depending on, should it be use case, should it be activity, and should it be sequence? And the answer is that it all depends. In my trainings and, in my mentorships, I get asked like, which diagram should we do? Which requirements gathering methodology we should use? And my answer always is use the one that you're most comfortable with, because all of these will result in customer verification and validation, and then you can use those to detail the requirements. Personally, I like to use case diagrams at a high level to understand what are the major things that we need to build in the system. Doing use case diagrams helps you identify what major functions we need to deliver to the customers. You can validate that. And then from there, I like to use as is and to be workflows, right? Because they help me understand what the pain points are that we're solving for. Lots of times when you do as is workflows, you figure out that there are things that either are repetitive or unneeded, or just are of no value, and you can solve for those things in the to be workflows. But typically it all kind of depends on what it is that your project needs and what methodology you're comfortable with, because whether you do a sequence diagram or you do an activity diagrams are typically end-to-end, and most like your to be and as is workflows, they will give you kind of the same result. But let me stop sharing my screen. So to create these diagrams, use case, activity, you need a diagramming software. If you're in the work environment, you'll be using something called Visio, Microsoft Visio, to create them. But there's lots of free diagramming softwares out there today. What I am most familiar with and what I use day to day is called draw.io, and I'll start sharing my screen. It's completely free. It's a little finicky, meaning that you have to play around with it sometimes, but it does the job. It gives you the general diagrams that you guys need. Are you guys able to see my screen? Let me see if I'm sharing. Yeah, I am sharing. So this is draw.io. So just go online and just do draw.io, and you'll come to like this page. I've set it up already, so let's start using this one.
The customer.
Yeah. Who else?
Seller.
Who else?
Seller.
So seller.
Vendors.
Seller and vendor is the same thing, right? So they're different
Okay.
entities that sell on Amazon.
Bank.
Are you saying credit card company?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, what else? I'll just say payments. What else? Who else?
Admin.
Admin for what?
From the other end, from Amazon.
So yeah, that's what I was getting at. So Amazon is also an actor, right? Because we're using their platform.
Yeah.
So typically when we think about Amazon, there's these 4 different actors, right? So the reason why I put customer and seller on this side is because these are the active actors, right? Like these are the primary actors that interact with Amazon. And then payments and Amazon are the secondary, meaning that they wait for something to happen before they get activated. So these are customers, like for example, I am the one looking on Amazon for products, and these sellers are the ones that are actively adding products on Amazon. So these are called our active or our primary, and these are called our primary actors, and these are called our secondary actors. Okay, so now tell me, what are the major functions if we were to build Amazon? What do you do on Amazon today?
Buying a product.
Yeah. So before that, you search for products, right? What else do you do? And you buy a product.
Adding the product to the cart.
Okay, what else? If you're not speaking and if you don't have a question, please put yourself on mute. Okay, what else do we do on Amazon, you guys?
Adding the cart details, making the payment.
How many you guys return items on Amazon? Something that you've ordered and it's not what you wanted. So how many of you guys process returns?
Enter your address.
I'm sorry?
Enter your details and address.
Typically you want to go these in sequence. Don't have to, but it makes it a little bit easier. Okay, from a seller standpoint, somebody who is selling on Amazon, what are they doing?
Uploading their product to the platform.
Good morning.
On bed.
Okay, because Mama's working.
Oh, I've been, not on bed.
Mama, shall we? You guys, my husband's traveling, so I'm a single mom this week. And I have a little 4-year-old.
Oh.
Okay, so so the things that the seller will do is there's tools on Amazon. If you're a seller, not that I'm a seller, but there's tools on Amazon that allow you to do product research. So I think that they would probably be doing product research. I think so. I don't know. I think I have to create a seller account because I talk about Amazon a lot. Product research, adding products. What else? Are they shipping the products? Right, they're shipping products that are ordered. Okay, so just by doing this simple exercise that took us less than 5 minutes, we are able to identify from a customer standpoint all the things that we need to have or talk about or document if we were to build a system like Amazon. And that's the beauty of use case diagrams, is because it lets you step outside of your, your own role as a BA and step inside the role of a customer or a seller and figure out what it is that you guys need to work on. I'm getting some chat notifications. Oh, sorry, I couldn't. Submit order like an external actor. It's like can we add Kindle Reader? Yeah, we can. Segmentation of products. I think we can add customer service. Yep. All good suggestions. So again, my goal here is to help you guys understand how and why use case diagrams are so helpful. So in less than 5 minutes, we were able to identify, and if you're in the agile environment, these items become your user stories, right? Or your features, right? Because when you talk about creating an account, there's going to be many user stories under it, but these become your big pillars of functionality that you need to deliver for this project. So not only are you identifying the major pillars of functionality, you can take this diagram and take it to your stakeholders, your business partners, your product owner, and say, hey, Mr. Product Owner, if you're in the agile environment, do I have this correct? Or what am I missing? What else from your standpoint do we need to build into this system so that it meets your specifications, right? So this is typically the reason why we do lots of diagramming, is because pictures speak 1,000 words. They're a lot easier to get validation and confirmation, approval on what needs to be in the system. Okay.
Yeah.
So now in order to complete this, we will be doing like arrows here. So the customer is going to be interacting. This is what a customer does. And in doing so, we will identify things that are being done by both the customer and the seller, right? Because that's where, when you're building systems and functionalities, when you're, creating mockups, you can then expand further in, writing user stories that are conducive and are, you're not doing too many. So I'm probably going off on a tangent here. I don't want to confuse you guys, but let's do this and I'll show you what I mean. So a customer is going to purchase products. A customer is going to add payment options. I'm going to remove returns from here. From a seller standpoint, our seller is also going to be concerned with those product reviews, right? Our seller is also going to be concerned with product returns. So you see how not only have we identified what functionality our actors are most concerned with, but how they interrelate between our actors. And so when we start to write our user stories, we should be mindful of, okay, from a customer standpoint, as a customer, I want to do this. As a seller, when a customer has processed a return, I need to get notified. So you see how we're now starting to interconnect requirements and user stories together between the different actors. That is the beauty of spending the time and doing these use case diagrams. Okay, so our sellers are going to be primarily concerned with product research, add products to the marketplace. And then they're also going to be concerned with shipping products. But our customers also need to get notifications. How many of you guys get notifications when things are getting shipped out? Right? So that's also a requirement for our customer. No? This is all good? And then on this end side for payments, we'll just be concerned with payments here. And then from an Amazon standpoint, let's say if Amazon is those sellers, so the happy path is sellers could be shipping products, but there's something called Amazon fulfillment. So let's, in that scenario, if Amazon is doing the shipment, then they need to be concerned about shipping the products. Okay, and again, this is very, 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 very high level. The goal is to help you guys understand what use case diagrams are and how to create them, and I'm not getting this arrow to work properly.